Alright everybody, welcome to a new video and hopefully a brand new series. Yes, I'm going to try to start ranking directors and actors and filmographies of different people. Yeah, I want to make director rankings a series specifically and maybe do some other stuff. So down in the comments below, tell me who you want to see. And yeah, I'll take suggestions. For reference, I am close on finishing Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, David Fincher, Christopher Nolan, and Tarantino. Close on a lot of people, some of those. So suggest some of them or somebody else, and I'll get to it. I'm trying to upload more consistently, continue this series, and do all that fun stuff. So just let me know what you want to see, and yeah. Alright, so today's ranking is going to be of Wes Anderson, and he's a director that's really known for being stylish. He has his own very unique, specific style where it's very colorful, super bright, sometimes this just epic backdrop, sometimes they're real, sometimes they're not. He really uses the same actors over and over again, so every movie has a familiar feeling to it that crosses over from movie to movie, and he's really known for writing these quirky characters with dark comedy interwoven into it, and you can always tell when you're watching a Wes Anderson movie. It has a feeling that no other director has, and you can just tell when you're watching him, and it has a familiar feeling, and it's quirky and it's great, and yeah. So for those of you that don't know, one more thing that really is just a trademark of Wes Anderson is him and his cinematographer take the camera they are shooting with, and they take the corners of the shot, the edges of the shot, and line them up with the corners of the room. And it makes every shot of his symmetrical, and whatever's being shot, usually the actors or whatever's the focus of the scene, is almost always in the center. He centers up what's the focus, has a symmetrical shot, and it has this comforting feeling about seeing the visual that's in front of you, and it's a pretty awesome way of doing things. I love his directing style, the colors, cinematography, and I have been on record saying, maybe bit of an exaggeration, but I have been on record saying that I could watch a Wes Anderson movie on mute. Now, whether that's exactly true or not, you could debate, but it's just a testament to how beautiful and gorgeous all his movies are, and that's really my favorite part about his directing. So, other than that, we'll hop right into the ranking and go straight to number 10. Right, so number 10, the worst Wes Anderson movie, in my opinion, is The French Dispatch. And I did not like this movie at all. It really had a hollow story. I just didn't care about anything that was going on. The plot never roped me in. Didn't feel like there was any stakes. I couldn't find myself caring about the story at all. And the characters were pretty boring, which is an anomaly for a Wes Anderson movie. Usually you relate to one, if not multiple of the characters, and you care about what's going on with them. That just wasn't the case here. I really just there wasn't much I can say positive about The French Dispatch. I know my score might not reflect that exactly. I'm thinking low 60 is probably what I would give story, characters. It gets a bump because I still think it's very visually striking. Great use of color in some of the black and white scenes. There are some highlights about the filmmaking aspects, but the story was really poor. It's for those of you who may have not seen it, it's three short stories combined into one movie to make like an hour and 40-ish minute movie. And it just three stories about these newspaper articles. Just I don't know. It was a really odd decision to make this movie. Maybe it worked for other people. I know Karsten Rundquist, who's pretty big here on YouTube, is a big fan of this movie. I'm curious what exactly worked for him because to me it was just it's really boring. Pretty bluntly, but that's the only thing I can really say is it was pretty boring. It again, it was still visually pleasing, and there's a pretty great cast. So the characters being underwhelming is a little bit shocking, but I think the writing was just really lacking here. Not Wes on his A game or whoever wrote this screenplay. Um, and I will say this is the only Wes Anderson movie I don't like. I don't hate it, but I don't like it. Everything from here forward, even 9, being my next least favorite, I still like it. 9 forward, I like all the other ones. It's the only Wes Anderson movie I don't like, and maybe I'll like it again on a rewatch, but right now, it's not my favorite. So let's move on to number 9. All right, number 9, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. And yes, it's number 9. It is my next least favorite, but I do like this movie. Like I just said, from 9 on, I like them. They only get better from here. Um, it's weird. It's weird territory here because my score I know is not much higher than The French Dispatch, but that does not represent there's a large gap between how much I like the two movies. I mean I would give a thumbs down to The French Dispatch. I like The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. It's not necessarily exactly my thing. It's a little too quirky for me, and I think what hurt this movie for me the most was the humor didn't land so much. This is one of the least funny Wes Anderson movies to me because it's very dry, and it works for some people. If the humor lands, this is probably one of your favorite Wes Anderson movies. I just remember it's been a while since I've seen it, but I just remember the humor not landing as much for me on this one as a lot of his other movies. But it is quite an interesting story. There's a lot of yellows and baby blues and reds that make the color pop. Story's good, characters are good. It has a lot of bright spots, and therefore I think it's an enjoyable movie. I really like the story of a man at the end of his life searching for something to fulfill him, because it's a really interesting theme of like sometimes life's anticlimactic. Sometimes there's not this crazy peak that we search for. It doesn't always happen like that. And that's really what Bill Murray's character is. We kind of play up life sometimes. And he's searching for something great, and his son is searching for the father he never really had and this relationship that was lost. Thematically, it is probably one of his richest movies. There's some really cool stuff to dissect there. So if you're into dry humor, deeper stories and themes, I think this one might work for you a lot. Um, the performance by Bill Murray is pretty great. It's probably one of the better single lead performances in a Wes Anderson movie. It's up there. And a lot of the underwater stuff was shot really well. It's pretty cool. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would give it a thumbs up to check it out. But it is number 9. It is my second least favorite, but the first one that I liked, and I am going to rewatch it soon. So with that, let's move on to number 8. All right, I know. This is one of two things that might get me roasted about this ranking, about this list. But I gotta be honest. If I'm not being honest about my ranking, then what are we doing here? So, Moonrise Kingdom, I like it. I like it quite a bit. It is a good, maybe even very good movie, super solid. But with that said, I think it's the most overrated Wes Anderson movie. Now, again, I like it. I'm not saying that it is bad. It is a good movie. But it is the most overrated Wes Anderson movie. I'm not really sure how a lot of people think it's the best one. That's where my overrated sentiment comes from. because it's not even top five, top four, none of that. It's 8 for me. Um, so I think where the disconnect for me is he makes the story through the eyes of the kids. And that makes the adventure so much more fun. There's the pureness of how they see nature and how they see the trails and the ocean and their kingdom they build, the imagination behind the building of Moonrise Kingdom makes there's something so pure and engaging about that to the audience. And I know it sounds like a positive, but making it through the eyes of the kids is a double-edged sword. Where all that I just said was an extreme positive, I think it makes it very unique and fun and engaging, like I said. But it really dampened the Wes Anderson humor for me because the R-rated, dry, clever, witty stuff is what's so funny about his movies. The the adults making jokes about life and about being older and stuff that you don't want kids saying on screen that wouldn't make sense for a kid to say on screen is really what makes Wes Anderson so unique and funnier than other directors. So I think Moonrise Kingdom has some really great things, but also some really hollow, like kind of dumb. I don't like using the word dumb, but it just kind of there were some things that were really dull. Some jokes that were dull, characters that just didn't really make sense to me. Um, but yeah, the adventure part is amazing. This island they're on, the building of creating of Moonrise Kingdom, conjuring up this world, and just embarking on an adventure that only makes sense from the eyes of an 11-year-old or however old they are. Just there's something behind the imagination of it that is really heartwarming, and it's kind of makes you feel like a kid again in parts. So I do like it quite a bit. I think there's notable performances from the two children are both great. Edward Norton, as always, he's never missed. Bruce Willis is pretty good. There's a couple good. Some of the parents are pretty funny. I really love the shots of the house. They show shots of the watchtower and the house from the field, and there's some really gorgeous shots here. Not my favorite color tones of like maybe his yellowest movie, which is it works in some places, not necessarily the nature shots, but there's some gorgeous stuff here, and the adventure is really fun. So if that sounds interesting, I would check this one out. It is a good movie, just a little overrated. All right, let's move on to 7. Okay, number 7, Isle of Dogs. This movie is much better than I was led to believe that it was going to be. And all right, number 7, Isle of Dogs. This movie, when I watched it, it was much better than I was led to believe. I was under the impression that it was kind of boring, little dull, and almost like he couldn't recapture the magic of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Which really, I mean, it's so different from Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's not the story's not even remotely similar. So I find it to be a weird comparison just because they're stop motion and similar animation from the same director, but they're very different movies. It's almost like comparing like Rushmore and The French Dispatch just because they're both live action or something like that. It doesn't really make sense. They're not the same story. They're not even close. It's Isle of Dogs. I don't really have that much to say about it except I just like it. I mean, it's very good, very solid movie, serviceable, funny, fun to watch, especially if you're a dog lover. Um, Interesting story, super unique, but I like it a lot, but I don't think it's reinventing the wheel of quality here. There's nothing that's just like really stands out for me. I don't think I think the story is very enjoyable. I think most everybody can say they watched it and liked it, but it's not anything to write home about. Not a top 5 Wes Anderson movie, not the best dog movie ever. It's not the best stop motion movie ever. It's very good in everything that it does. I don't think it misfires very much. It's a very safe movie, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, it doesn't misfire anywhere. There's no real missteps, but it doesn't take any big leaps either. It's the stop motion looks great. Most of it's like nighttime from what I can remember. It's a really interesting story. I don't think you guys will have seen anything like it if you haven't seen it. And I'm curious what you guys think about this movie. Um, Maybe let me know in the comments because I think this is one of his more divisive films. But like I said, it's just not doing anything spectacular here. I like it a lot. I have it like 1 point higher than Moonrise Kingdom. I think the gap is actually bigger than 1 point would makes it seem. But yeah, Isle of Dogs, great movie. Maybe not great, really good movie. Just not anything special. Not writing home about it, but I think you'll enjoy it. Also, tidbit. I don't know if this is like common knowledge, but if you say Isle of Dogs fast enough, it sounds like I love dogs. Don't know if that was everybody knew that, maybe. If everybody already knew that, you can call me dumb in the comments. It took me a while to figure that out, and I kind of stumbled upon it on accident. But if you didn't know that, now you do. Good movie, not spectacular. Let's move on to 6. All right, number 6, Bottle Rocket. And I know this is not even top 5 yet. It's not even top 5, but he has some great movies. This one being 6 and not in the top 5 might surprise some people. You probably could swap this with number 5. Uh, they're very neck and neck. But this is a great movie, and I know it's not top 5, but this is where Wes Anderson really kicks up for me. That sounds weird because it was his first movie. I'm not saying in order of where he kicks up, but just in my ranking, this is where it starts to get serious. I think this is probably one of the best directorial debuts ever, maybe. I mean, it has to be up there. It's really, for those of you who don't know what Bottle Rocket is, it's a super witty heist comedy starring Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson, and another gentleman that I'm forgetting his name. James Caan is also in it as an older man. It's just so different from like pretty much everything I've ever seen. Very different from everything else Wes Anderson's ever done. And this was his first movie. He made like for context, he made like a 13 or 14-minute short and sent it to a film festival. Some company picked it up and allowed him to make an hour and 30-ish minute version. And that's what we have known as Bottle Rocket as his directorial debut. And to me, what's so impressive about this movie, not only budget and starting out, just disregard those things, but on top of that, it's wildly mature. It's extremely mature for a young writer and a young director and young actors taking character. I mean, not that they're kids or anything, but they're not old or experienced. You know, I mean, the experienced things certainly they're starting out. They're doing their first movie. It's super mature with all the themes that it hits on: mental health, feeling lost, abandonment, friendship. I mean, it pretty advanced for, in my opinion, pretty advanced for a young writer or director. It just it feels really mature. I think it's the best way I can say it, and because of that, it's relatable and has lasted the test of time. It's relatable even now to, I think, people of all kinds of ages. It's really a great character study from more than one angle, if you think about it. And it's also funny, and the heist is crazy, and there's some neurotic characters. There's funny stuff going on top of some really rich stuff, I think. And a great thing, not necessarily with the story, but it's, like I said, it's short. It's about an hour and a half, so it's really fast paced. It keeps you on your toes. It's always hitting you with something new. Really upbeat. One of the faster Wes Anderson movies. Keeps you on your toes a lot. It's a blast. It's an easy recommend to all your friends. I think a lot of people can find something they like in this movie. So yeah, big thumbs up. Bottle rockets where we get serious in this ranking. So let's move on to number 5. Okay, number 5. I'm coming in with a hot take for number 5. I think the Darjeeling Limited is maybe the most underrated movie of this century. I know, wild take, super hot take. But I think this movie has a perfect balance of humor with darkness and family dynamics that's just perfect. It just, the blend of those three, where the Venn diagram meets in the middle, is this perfect, wholesome adventure of brotherly love and family missteps, and there's good and bad and hate and love and funny and dark. It's this crazy balance of these contrarian ideas. They're very different things, just oxymoronic things going on at the same time that's balanced incredibly. The writing of this screenplay is super impressive. I think this movie, I don't know why it doesn't really get the credit that it deserves. Maybe it does in circles that I'm not in. But from everything I've seen, I think this movie's super underrated. It's hilarious. Does get pretty dark. There's some wacky things going on. It's I mean, the wacky things you would expect with three white brothers traveling around India doing just crazy things. Drugs they've never experienced, clothes they've never worn, streets they've never walked down, people they've never met. Just like a super unique way of telling a story of experiencing life. They're kind of physically walking through a new land, just like people mentally walk through new challenges and stuff. It's a really cool way of showing experiencing life and coming closer together, creating bonds with family or friends or whatever. There's some dark stuff in here. I mean, there's a couple deaths, more than one. Um, but there's some really good jokes in here too. I want to say, I'm not going to say the joke, but if you're curious enough, somewhere in the almost the center of this movie, there's a joke about trains that caught me so off guard. It's top 5 hardest I've ever laughed at a movie. It's a super dry joke. It's not like really clever or anything, but it catches you so off guard. One of the funniest things I've ever heard in a movie. I really like this movie a lot. I love it, in fact. Putting it top 5 and saying it's the most underrated movie of 21st century, I get it. Some people probably super disagree or maybe hate that take. I don't know, but I like it a lot. It's not the best Wes Anderson movie, but it's up there with the best. Very good. I recommend it to all of you. I think it's probably very underseen. So with that, let's move on to number 4. All right, number 4. Yes, I know. This is the second thing, another one of 2 things that I mentioned that might get me roasted. On top of putting Moonrise Kingdom possibly too low, I put Fantastic Mr. Fox possibly too low. And it speaks to the testament, it's a testament to the movie itself, how beloved it is and how great it is, that I can put it fourth and still be able to say that I think it's overrated. It's really beloved. And it's also a testament to Wes Anderson's filmography, that he has 3 movies that I think are better than this. But anyways, this movie is great, and I really do love it. It's it's great, but it just doesn't hit that next level for me. It doesn't hit the spectacular. I don't really know what the word I'm looking for is, but it doesn't go to that next tier, that S tier of movies. The top 3 I would say S tier, but this one doesn't go quite that high for me. I will say, I mean, I can only say good things about it because I think it's great, but it's possibly the best stop motion movie ever. I don't know if it's definitely nothing's been topped. It's not been topped since then. The movement tracks perfectly. It's not choppy animation. The colors of the different skins of the animals, their clothes, the nature around them, trees and grass and hills. It just looks gorgeous, above ground and below ground. It just looks amazing. It's a gorgeous movie. But on top of that, it's a great voice cast. There was some great direction here. I know they behind the scenes while recording their lines, they would actually do the thing their character was doing, even though their face isn't being recorded. George Clooney ate bread while delivering lines one time that Mr. Fox was eating bread. Things like that. Some great direction. Some unique stuff going on. And I really think what makes it the best is just expertise in stop motion. Wes Anderson and co. and his crew just really put on a clinic here with the stop motion. So it's an amazing animated movie. I think the story is heartwarming. Some great themes about family and never being too far gone. You know, it can always turn something around. You're never too far to try to be better. And I think that's a great theme, and it's a great movie. It's just slightly overrated, so it came in at 4. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, coming in at number 3 is The Royal Tenenbaums, one of the greatest family dramedies, and in all time family dramedy for sure. This might be Wes Anderson's greatest cast, possibly, with great performances from Gene Hackman, Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Owen Wilson. Just really stacked cast here, and great performances pretty much all around. This may be his heaviest movie emotionally. It's one of his heavier movies. They deal with themes of depression and suicide in some scenes, or broken families, abusive parents in some parts. But it makes it sound really dark. It's not as dark as that just made it seem, but it is one of his heavier movies. And I think that's what makes it so deeply relatable. Is the characters are real. There's dark stuff. There's bad things happening. It's not just all fantasy. It makes it deeply relatable as a story, and the characters. It makes it like genuine and real, and to me, it makes me love it even that much more. I think the funny quirkiness is just only complemented by how well he balances dark stuff, the dark tones, and I really think that part is great. This is probably Wes Anderson's best costume design. If it's top 2 with my number 1 pick, it's either this one or the movie I have at number 1. Some great costumes here. I mean, Ben Stiller's family with the red tracksuits, Owen Wilson with the cowboy attire, Luke Wilson with the headband and jacket, and Gwyneth Paltrow being very quirky. Some of his quirkiest characters, some of his sharpest writing, on top of the costumes, makes some super memorable characters, and again, relatable ones at that. I think the story stays really fresh. I don't want to. I'm hesitant to use the word twist, but plot developments that were relatively unexpected, particularly with the father and the relationship between the family. I think keeps the story really fresh. Some people redeem themselves, some people don't. Just great family dynamics, man, and a fresh story, something pretty unique, a unique way of doing a family dramedy, family comedy. As has been done before, sure, but not the Wes Anderson way, not like this. I think this movie is pretty great. I almost said amazing. I'm sparing with that word. I'm sparing with high scores. But I really like this movie a lot. I love it actually, but this is an important movie to me. My mom likes this movie a lot. It's a really good one. It'll bring you to tears and make you laugh, just in Wes Anderson fashion. I think this deserves the 3rd spot, just outright. And any of you that haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. It's amazing. Well, there I used the word amazing. There you go. So with that, we can move on to number 2. Number 2, Rushmore. Okay, we're getting to the really spicy stuff now. Rushmore is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's up there, top 100 favorites. Probably higher than that, probably top 70-ish. But I like this movie a lot. It's super touching. But I did watch this at the right age. I will say I watched this at the perfect age where it just connected with me. I was a little bit older than who Jason Schwartzman his character is supposed to be. I was a little older than his age, but it was still the right time for the story to connect with me. It's a young boy who's just trying to navigate through life and experiencing love for the first time, and he's kind of overwhelmed, but he also never lets it show. He doesn't let his guard down. He just keeps trucking, and it's kind of what we all have to do day-to-day basis. You know, we experience challenges, we experience things for the first time, or sometimes for the 100th time, and it may not get easier. And we all just kind of feel like this guy at sometimes. And I just think it's beautiful the way they show it, because he's so funny. He's this extravagant young kid who he's in every single extracurricular activity that you could imagine. He's in every club, sport, game, just anything, academics. He's good at everything in these clubs outside of school, outside of his normal coursework, because he's spreading himself too thin. He does so many things, and he's pretty good at many of them, but he doesn't really know what he wants for himself. He's running all these things for other people, but he doesn't know what he wants for himself. He doesn't know what he wants to do with himself or what exactly he loves, because he does so many things well. He's kind of divided. I think he's divided emotionally, he's divided mentally, and he kind of goes through all of it on his own. His father is a nice man, but is busy and doesn't have a lot of money, works a lot. So this leads to him feeling like he's not supported that much. I think he feels like he has to do it alone almost. He builds up this persona that's super extravagant, like I'm good at all these things, I run all these things, and that turns into lying. He lies quite a bit to try to keep up this larger than life story that's not necessarily true. Even at one point he lies about his father's profession to sound cooler than he really is. I'm not going to go into details in case somebody hasn't seen it, but he lies about a couple things to try to make his family and himself and his backstory sound cooler than a human's really does. And I think this story just really, it connected with me really well. I feel like it's a super relatable story. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. You should. It's because it's real, it's genuine, it's raw parts of the human condition that we don't always know where we're going, but we try our best along the way. And it really turns into this, like I said earlier, he doesn't know what he wants until he meets this new teacher. He feels like he has this crazy, super tight-knit connection with her just right off the bat. And she's quite a bit older than him, too old for him. But it just creates these touching situations that really resemble life and love, and how some things don't work out, but some things fall apart so other things can fall together. And I think this movie really shows that super well. Speaking more generally, it feels perfectly Wes Anderson. The blend of comedy and drama is just perfect. It's the laughs per minute of this movie are really high. There's just jokes left and right, really witty, super sharp writing, and then some poignant scenes in between. It's a great balance. It feels perfectly Wes Anderson, and it deserves the second spot, just undoubtedly. And I want to read a quote from Rushmore that's maybe my favorite quote that I've ever seen in a movie, so I wanted to read it for you guys, because it's super inspirational and touching to me. He reads this quote written in a textbook, and it's really a big point for him. Even though they don't talk about it much, it's a big turning point for the movie. And the quote is from Jacques Cousteau, and it says, When one man, for whatever reason, has the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life, he has no right to keep it to himself. Jacques Cousteau. It's a great quote, and it's a great movie. Completely deserved of the second spot. So from there, we'll move on to number one. And coming in at number one, yes, my favorite Wes Anderson movie is The Grand Budapest Hotel. This this is an all-time favorite of mine. I said that for number two, but I meant like top 100 favorites, large macro favorite list. This is like a top 20, top 25 all-time favorite. Just super high on my favorites list. Really high on my all my scores. I don't give out 90 plus scores very often. I'm pretty sparing with scores that high, and this is currently sitting at a 91 for me. It's really high for me, and I just love this movie. It's so funny. It is hilarious, albeit dark comedy, black comedy, whatever you want to call it. It's dark, but it's hilarious. It's so funny to me. And I think that's what makes this movie great, is it blends things amazingly. I've said that a couple times about some of the movies on this list, but this is just the absolute best showing of it. It blends comedy with adventure and themes of attachment and sentimentality and friendship, and just kind of mashes them up in this pot like a very different things, and mashes them up together and just makes this poignant, fun movie. An adventure that shouldn't really work, but it does. And there's so many unique things about how it's told. I mean, it's told from a person looking back on their life who is creating a story. They write the book. The book is told about on a newscast, and then the book is read by a young lady in the future, and you're experiencing it through like 3 layers of the future. But regardless, it's Zero looking back on his life, and it's told in a fantastical way. This land that doesn't really exist, from a hotel that's practically magical. Just a super unique way of telling a story like this. Just something that's you can't even compare it to another movie. Um, I love the way it blends things, but on top of the story, this is where what I said earlier in the intro, when I can watch a Wes Anderson movie on mute, a little hyperbolic, yeah, sure, but this is where this came from. This was the first Wes Anderson movie I ever saw, which can be a little weird watching the best or my favorite movie of a director just immediately, because then everything after that is trying to live up to this pinnacle that's just unrealistic. But that's where this came from. I was thinking, man, this is the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. These beautiful colors, purples and browns and oranges and pinks and blues, just popping everywhere and contrasted perfectly with the landscape and inside of the hotel. Just it's just so comforting to watch. Beautiful colors and perfectly symmetrical shots going across floors of the hotel, tracking shots, uh, perfect window shots through cars, and it's it's so gorgeous. And to me, it's comforting to watch. I think this may be my favorite use of color ever in film. I just it's so colorful. It's done exquisitely. Everything is done in this super unique, one of a kind way. Like I said, I just don't think there's a movie that I can compare this to. And it's his best in quality, but maybe one of his most unique at the same time. I mean, I can't think of anything else from him or any director to compare this to. This is an amazing movie. And I know people love it. It's not usually number one on people's lists of Wes Anderson, but so maybe that technically makes it a little underrated by my standards. But I think it's well loved for great, perfect reason, completely deserving. If you haven't seen this movie, check it out, man. It's amazing. All of his stuff is great except movie I talked about at number 10. Basically everything else I would give a thumbs up and go watch. Um, so other than that, guys, remember like, subscribe, and come down in the comments and tell me what director you want me to rank next. Or again, I can do top 5 films from a specific actor, or top films from a certain year. Whatever you guys want, just give me some ideas. But I'm gonna try to make director rankings a series specifically, and yeah, I'm gonna try to be a little more consistent and upload, and that's pretty much all I got. So let me know what you want to see in the comments. That's all I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.